really well-guarded secret with me, is it? I'm quite severely unhappy with the way I live life in America. To be sure, it's not America's fault at all. I mean, she does try, I'm just not. I'm never really at home in America. I never quite feel like America is home to me, home for me. At least not just yet. What do I say? Your name, preferably. That's what you start with.
Dave's elder, shorter brother.
Yeah, okay, fine, that works. Emphasis on the short, I guess. That's just a fact. If I'm being entirely honest, it doesn't have much to do with, with the fact that America is this, America is that. It's just that America is not home, Like, it's not the place I was born, it's not the place I knew people, it's not the place where, where things are to be found, for instance. So when I think about home, America is never the place I instantaneously think about. But, in the very same breath, and coming back home, after being away from for such a long time and finding out that things have changed, also makes Kenya, in a very weird way, not home. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like going to Spain as a country, Kwanza? Did you like being away from home?
Being away from home was a bit sad. You start missing people you didn't even think you'd ever miss. So Spain was fun, but it just wasn't home.
I know, man. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. As in, it's not the fault of the place that you're at. It's just that you're trying to compare it against, like, a place that you know so well, a place you're very familiar and very comfortable with.
So let me get this straight. So you knock your toe.
Yeah, that's the first thing that happens. Yeah, you stub your toe. That's the first thing that happens.
And then you bend out.
When you're bending to adjust your toe, a guy just shows up randomly and slaps you across the face. What do you think will happen to your toe?
Just like right in the face.
Like a really good. What happens to your toe at that time? What happens to the pain you feel in your toe? What do you imagine will happen?
It actually changes because now your perception is not the pain in your toe.
Exactly.
Perception is driven by rage.
Yeah, that's just it.
You're angry that someone just slapped you.
Yeah, man. Yeah. As the gate theory of pain, and it suggests that it's very, very possible for non-painful stimuli like shame, those strong emotions, or generally just like deep, intense thought to block the reception of the perception of pain, actual pain, by your brain, so that if you stubbed your toe and you felt that pain, and then someone slapped you across the face and you felt a sense of shame, instantaneously you stop feeling the pain that's in your toe. You first register the emotional implications of having been slapped across the face by a person you don't know and the shame that comes along with it. A lot of my life in America is more or less the same way. When I left home in India, it was really, really one of the hardest things I had ever done. I didn't know what to do with my friends, for instance. I didn't know whether or not if we came back, me and you, I know we're bros, that's a fact, but I really didn't know whether or not, if I came back, you would have, for instance, I don't know, just totally found a different way of existing, that did not necessarily include a bro. Anjo nimekuweka.
Hey, what happened, man?
Delays, kadhaa.
Sasa mimi
Mbona?
traffic.
Pale job iko. If I'm not happy in America, in part it's because I'm not reckoning with the fact that leaving home in LA generally scars me. Every single time I come on a come back, you see that things have changed, and you see that the spaces that you used to occupy, for instance, are no longer quite as. So what I'm looking for here, open to your presence, like the friends that you used to hang out with, for instance. I've found other people to hang out with, the people that you used to depend upon. I found other people to depend upon. Me and Jeff have a sister from another mother, basically, who has a child that we both love, who when I left was barely born, and now is a year old and crawling everywhere, and he just lights up the room. Every single room that he's in is such a bundle of joy, and both of us just revel in that, in his presence, just a year later. But as a person who hasn't seen him for that entire year, and here I think about the time that I have lost in between, like whether the thing I think about when I say I'm missing home when I'm in school, for instance, whether or not it's still home, do I even know?
No,
that's the point, man. I'm really, really, really hung up on the slaps that I keep getting every single day, and there are many. Why lie? There are many, but if home is home, regardless, then what that means, in a sense, Piani, home is home even if you're not there. If Kenya as a country on the whole is my home, and it's not because of where it's located on the map of Africa. It really has something more to do with the things that make me comfortable in this space, the things that make me relevant in this space, the things that make me feel like I belong, the things that make me feel like I am loved, like I matter, like my presence here means something to the people, you know, to the people that live here, to the people that call this a home as well. Because life is for the living. If you're there, life happens to you because you're there. So if you're not there, life still happens regardless of whether or not you're around. I know the actual physical distance, you know, I can tell you how many miles apart away from Kenya school is right now. It really wouldn't help, because if I don't know how that affects my relationship with you, for instance, as my brother,
We can't have.
when you come back home, is not the same home. You know, it still remains to be home, that's true, but the fact that it's home does not mean that it's the same. That's the thing I really didn't know to very, very consciously be aware of when I left.
Yeah, I thought I'm hearing somebody, then I'm not hearing.
If you are used to things being a certain place, like in your room for instance, if you are used to your bed being a certain way, your clothes being a certain place, you know, like if you're used to dinner being served at a certain time, being cooked in a certain way by a certain person, and then you came back home the very next day, you know, and all of a sudden the things that you're used to are no longer there, at least not in the same fashion that you left them, not in the same way that you would very, very readily identify with them. Does that location still remain to be home to you? Yes, it remains to be home to you, it just remains to be home to you in a very different way. Extrapolate that same argument to your friendships. If you came back home and your best friend had another best friend, are you still friends? Yes. Because you know, like there's nothing that happened that made you two like fall out with one another, but are you still friends in the same way? Arguably no. Like if your friend really badly needed something, because you haven't been there, they have learned to depend on someone else, then technically speaking, you're not really friends like that, you know, as in like you don't know one another that way. That's personally a thing I never really necessarily took the requisite amount of time to think about and to process and to let it sit nicely in my brain. I really wish I had. I honestly wish I had. I don't claim to have any answers in life on the whole. I don't. I feel very, very comfortable with my family, for instance. My distance away from family, people that I know for a fact are linked to me by blood, never ever makes me feel like I'm being neglectful. You know, as long as I'm paying attention to them, as long as I'm checking in once ever so often, and I never ever feel like I'm in a long distance relationship with my mom. Because they're family, I'm almost always very conscious to do the things that I need to do for them, you know, to make sure that we remain family with one another. I'm always constantly feeling that pain of being away from them and responding very positively to it. Because other relationships can be ignored. You can't afford to ignore family. Family is family. Because every other relationship can be ignored, and if I'm being entirely honest, in my own personal experience, because most of the other relationships back home, be it friendships, be it just partnerships, be it, I don't know, just other forms of cooperation on the whole, familiarity, even in a very general sense, like with the Kenyan politics, the Kenyan art scene, the Kenyan, you know, music scene on the whole, because those relationships can be ignored, that pain doesn't need to be felt always. And every single time I find that I don't pay attention and I don't necessarily respond in a positive way toward that pain, when I come back home, I'm always shocked. I'm always stunned. You're like, you guys, you changed, you know.